We see this in Game of Thrones, right? On some level, this dynamic of like there is some type of army that is amassing across the seas and is coming in this mass, this horde, and it has been sort of astonishing. Folks, I think most folks know that in Honduras, in El Salvador, in a couple of states in Central America, we are seeing really unprecedented and unparalleled levels of violence, a mix of violence and poverty and criminality and in governmental instability. Not totally, but largely a function of our policies over the years in supporting coups, in funneling money there, in shipping literally gang members there. And people tried to escape. And what happened was a couple of weeks ago, small groups of people decided it is much safer for us to travel in a group than it is as individuals. And what started off as 50, 60 people in a group or 20 people in a group became 50 or 60 people. And then 50 or 60 people became 200 and 300. And then we have now a caravan of reportedly anywhere from a couple of thousand to, 5,000 or 6,000 who are winding their way through Central America and through Mexico. They are over 1,000 miles away from the United States. Now, I don't know if I can do the math, Heather, but to drive 1,000 miles would take you, like 40 hours? And that's at like 60 miles an hour. To walk, we're talking days upon days, assuming you don't even sleep. And they're walking with kids. And once they get to the border, all they're going to do is line up. And yet there's been this sort of like rhetoric that these people are an imminent threat to the United States. So much so that we had a woman quoted in the New York Times from Minneapolis that she was convinced her lake home was going to be overrun. How do you deal with this type of lying, Heather, without sort of, whitewashing or laundering the lie?
I don't know. It's very tough because, this is just rank racism. Let's just face what's happening here. There's a bunch of brown people, and even if you look at the pictures, you're not seeing a group of hardened, criminals or an army. You're seeing a bunch of women and children, older people, single men, kind of, walking with a pack over their back. I mean, it's nothing.
Or a kid on their shoulders.
A kid on their shoulders, right? And carrying a wheelbarrow or something. I mean, these are people who are quite clearly unthreatening in any way, as a group or as individuals. I mean, this is a bunch of Central American, folks who are, you don't take on 1,000-mile walk unless you're pretty desperate. I mean, these people are not doing this for no reason. But it's the sight of that, and this is what got Trump so excited over this, was when they saw the caravan take place, they realized that they were going to have pictures of brown people in a group. And Trump even went out of his way to say, look, did you see the pictures down at the border? And kind of assuming that his people were too stupid to know that it was actually the Mexico-Guatemalan border.
Right.
and not the American, the U.S.-Mexico border. And there was all this, there were people in a crowd, and there was military there. The Mexican military was there, and he was so excited because I really think he thought the Mexican military was going to shoot in the crowd, because that would be the only way to stop this, right? I mean, these people were coming over in various ways across the border, and the Mexicans weren't going to do that. And he ended up being very disappointed. But this is the idea of this, this mass of brown people coming, and this woman that you mentioned in the New York Times article. I mean, she's in, Michigan? I mean, it's absurd. She has more to fear from, French Canadians coming than any of these people from Central America. I mean, they're walking, but they're not going to walk that far. So, this was just playing right into their hands. And I don't think I need to, go too far into this, but I'm sure you'll agree with me that the media played into that. I mean, the New York Times had front pages 3 days in a row with pictures of this big caravan. Trump had to love that. It's not a front page story. It really is not. First of all, as you point out, they're 1,000 miles away. Second of all, even if they do reach the border, and many of them will fall off, by the way, these caravans have happened before, and some end up staying in Mexico, others end up going back. I mean, there's never this group that sticks together the whole time. But when this group comes to the border, here's what they do. They turn themselves in because they're applying for refugee status. Right. So they turn themselves in. There's no battle. There's no fight. There's no nothing. And then, they are cleared or not for some kind of asylum. And, they stake an asylum claim. I mean, there's nothing violent or invasive about any of this. And they aren't doing anything illegal, by the way. I mean, if you come and turn yourself in at the U.S. border and say, I want to apply for refugee status, that's the law. Now, Trump knows that, and he's constantly saying we have to change the laws.
We have to say that is U.S. law and international law, right? I mean, so these people are not, in the colloquial that is used, illegal. They're not even undocumented immigrants. They are refugee seekers. And then they get disposed, their cases get disposed of in one fashion or another. Some are very few, frankly, if past performance is indicative, will receive status, extended status. Others will be basically told you got to leave now. And so this is all completely manufactured. And when we come back, Digby, I want to get a sense of how the media should address this. I mean, clearly the New York Times has no reason to put pictures of the caravan on for 3 days in a row. But let's talk affirmatively. How should they deal with these type of lies? We have the same thing. We'll talk about this too when we return. This idea of a second round of tax cuts. There's not anything remotely close to that. Any more so than, I'm going to announce that next lottery, I'm winning $1 billion. Those two statements have almost the identical validity. All right, we're going to take a quick break. I'll be right back. Sam Seder, Ring of Fire Radio. We're talking to the great Digby.